I feel like for us is trying to get out of them what they like about this picture, right? Because not only do they bring in this picture, but they bring in this one. So they're like, I like these. You're like, those are two completely different things. And they're like, they are? Oh. But they look the same to me. To them, they do, right? They're both blonde. And they both have like some darkness at the base. But like, how do we know which one or what to give them as far as like a technique goes? So obviously different color outcomes, but placement wise, all the same techniques, just different variations of. So depending on how much you've left at the root or how close you went with your foils, will give you different end results like these. But very wearable, very usable. Would you agree that like what your clients are mainly looking for? Something soft, something blended, but at the same time, like you can see on this one that there's bolder pops of light through the interior. Same with the blonde, where it's a little bit more diffused on our mushroom and copper mannequin. So there's going to be sections throughout the technique that I'm going to say it is up to your creative freedom. That means if there's something that you've been wanting to try, like now's the time to try it. Emma doesn't care. She's not paying. And if you want to explore, Emma.
At least she's not going to pay.
This Emma, yeah. But if there's something that you want to try it on the mannequin first. So that way you know what your clientele is going to want. So maybe it's foils that go the whole way to the scalp. Maybe it's foils that only start in mid-shaft, to ends. So like on this one, like you can see that it's all a little bit more of like a root stretch. Everything's like in that zone 2, mid-length through zone 3. So if this is more of your clientele, if you see my foils go the whole way to the scalp, you are more than welcome to start them a little bit lower. It's about the placement, not necessarily about the ideal like outcome. I kind of want them all to look a little bit different. Is everyone okay with that? Number 3, that is going to be our inspiration for the technique, but it's not going to look the exact same as that. So we will have the flashes of light through the interior. We are going to use Freedom Blonde to achieve it versus color, just because of the time frame that we're working in and the technique. Because I want you guys to see the placement afterwards, where we're using color can sometimes blend it so that you can't see like what we're actually going to do. So it's going to be similar to that with a little bit more light. We're going to do a money piece with this because I know you guys want to see that too. So we're really going to be working in 3 separate sections. This impacts the baseline, right? So that's the bottom, the end result of our haircut. This is the part that you usually have to think about, like, are they going to cut their hair off? Do they like it long? Is it going to be short? Because whatever color I do here impacts how strong their haircut looks. Would you agree? Think about the clients that like have had bobs and they started dark and then start to go lighter. What happens to the look of that baseline? It softens. So dark hair shows form, light hair shows texture. So dark hair shows form, light hair shows texture. So if you have a client that's the exact opposite, so say that you have a client that has a bob and it's all blonde and she feels like her hair is like thin or fine on the ends, deepen her perimeter. Her hair will immediately start to look fuller and thicker by changing nothing else but like maybe adding a few lowlights to this section. It'll darken the perimeter up, make her look like she has way more hair than what she does, because dark again shows form, light shows texture. Make sense? Helpful? Cool. So anything you do here, again, remember this is impacted in your baseline. The interior is where you get that swing and movement. A lot of times when we do a money piece, we do it here, but you don't realize what happens here still impacts the way it falls around the face. Same with here, especially the clients that have longer hair when they do this. There's nothing worse than it being light, light, and then that chunk of dark that money piece gets lost in. So you have to connect it the whole way around the perimeter. And we're going to do that today. But what we're going to do first is I want you guys to divide it into 3 sections. So parietal ridge and up, the interior, and remember that starts right behind the ear, and then the baseline or the perimeter section. There's no more sectioning than this. As we work up the head, we will make like subsections, but this is the most detailed the sectioning gets for this. Again, like if I don't have to take that extra time in the salon to create like a detailed sectioning, I'm already saving time. So right there alone, bonus. After each section, so I'm going to show you the application. You guys are going to go and do it, and then we're going to meet back up here at the front. I'll give you guys a time limit just so that we can make sure that we get through everything. And I know that there's a lot of us, so splitting the head is going to help already, but I'm going to help keep you guys on time with like technique as well, if you guys are good with that. Okay? Awesome. You guys can come on in. I feel like you're way back there. Come on in. I don't bite, I promise. As long as I can get to my cart, I'm good. If you can't see, then I suggest getting to a place where you can see if you're good where you are. All right, that's cool. We are going to use Freedom Blonde. So Freedom Blonde is our clay-based lightener. It is for balayaging. Today we're going to use it in foils and to balayage with. This is my go-to for like doing like a detailed hairline. The reason is because most of the time it's really fine sections of hair, right? Those little baby lights. This sticks to a foil like Velcro. So this is usually my go-to because I don't want the hair to start like slipping out of the foil. So this just holds it inside the foil really nicely. Again, it's a great consistency for balayage, but I do love it in a foil, so you can use it that way as well. We mixed it with 40 volume today, so you can use 10, 20, 30, or 40 volume with Freedom Blonde. I know a lot of our other powder lighteners say no 40. Go for it. I'm like, it feels good to say 40 with this. So it's a 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio. That's the biggest part. Is that it's 1 part powder to 1.5 parts of your developer. Again, we used 40. But the great thing about this is the 2 components have to be used together. So it does have its own dedicated developer that you have to use with it if you want the full benefits from it. And when I say full benefits, it produces like a skin on the hair versus hardening like a clay. So those of you that are used to using a clay-based lightener, you usually get that shell on top of it, right? That you almost have to like crack through to see if it's lifted, if it's light enough, or that can start like peeling away. This will actually produce like a skin, so it's pliable and flexible. The reason I like it is I can see if I need to go back and reapply, and it hasn't hardened enough where I can re-moisturize it with more product. So I like utilizing it just because it's a little bit more user-friendly. So we're going to use that in foils. Again, and balayage, 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, up to 7 levels. The really important part of that statement is with 40 volume. So unlike our other lighteners where you can use like 10 volume with cream bleach and get up to 7 levels, or Magic and 10 up to 7 levels, with Freedom Blonde, only with 40 volume will you get up to 7 levels. So if you're using it now and you're not getting the full lift and you're like, it's not lifting, look at what developer choice you're going to, because 10 or 20 volume is only going to give you about 5, 30 volume is going to give you about 6, and not till you reach for 40 volume will it give you those 7 levels of lift. So I feel like that's important for you guys to know to get to the outcome that you want. Up to 15-minute processing time, so if it's done at 30, take it off at 30, that's great. It does have a clay base, and we use kaolin in it. It's in a lot of other like masks and like skincare products, so it's a really great grade of clay that we use in here as well. And it's in one of our blend products called clay. Fancy that. All right, so we're gonna do the perimeter first. It's usually where they want it lightest, right? That's usually where they want it the brightest. So we are gonna work bottom to top, but we are gonna outline the perimeter at the same time. Is everyone good with that? Cool. So, nape area. How many of you guys love to foil this area? Said no one ever. Because it's usually where you get the lines, right? The digits, the lines, it never looks natural. Like, how do I get it to blend? Like, what's my best approach to it? And the best approach to it is don't make it look perfect. Don't make it look perfect. And the reason I say that is no one's hairline is the same. The hairline is the most imperfect place probably on somebody's head because of the way that it grows. Most hairlines grow what? Up or in or out, anywhere but basically down usually. And it's imperfect in the way that it falls. Like if you look at the back of mine, it looks like the McDonald's arches. Like I have no hair in between, you know what I mean? Like the big M of hair. So the more that you can just play to whatever their hairline wants to do, the better. So instead of forcing hair there that doesn't want to be there, just pick up what does. We're going to do diagonal back foils, but I'm not going to pre-section it out like you normally would to start a foil, because immediately by doing that, I'm making it look too what? perfect. It's the exact opposite of what I want to do. So instead, I'm going to make sure that my mannequin, or in this case, like your client, has their head down so that way you can stretch out that hairline. Everyone take their hand and like put it on the back of their head with their head up. You guys feel that's your occipital bone back there, that big knot? Go ahead and put your head down now. What happens to that?
Just flattens out.
Flattens out. Set yourself up for success and flatten that out. If you're gonna fight that, the hair is gonna pull away from that the whole time. Helpful? Make sense? Okay, cool. So flatten that out, put their head down. I want this to be at a diagonal back, and I'm gonna come in with the tail part of my comb and weave out that hairline. So just that corner. So again, I'm not pre-sectioning it. Diagonal back, weave that and drop that out. I like to leave a little bit of like a shadow right on the hairline so when they do pull their hair up, it has something to kind of blend that in. So I'm gonna drop that out. Right on top of that, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm making little peaks and valleys with the pointy end of my comb. So I'm just stitching out the hairline. I'm gonna pull it off to the side and flip this away. Again, I'm gonna leave this out. I'm gonna foil this piece. And if you really look at it, can you see that they both kind of live within each other? So I've picked up the other like little peaks and valleys that I didn't grab on the first one. We are gonna foil this. Again, with it being around the perimeter, I would suggest taking this pretty close to the scalp. We are gonna feather it in towards the scalp. But again, like this is gonna be the piece of hair that when she pulls her hair forward, is gonna impact like that money piece around her face. It's gonna connect all those pieces together. Traditionally, I would put my foil in where? Here, right? And paint. When I paint it that way, where does the blend happen at? On the top or the bottom of the strand? On the top. When she pulls her hair up, what do I see? The top or the bottom of the strand? The bottom. I'm gonna flip it and paint it away. Okay? Because what's gonna happen the second that she goes to pull her hair up, I'm gonna see this blended piece, right? Or if I flip it the other way, the blend's on the other side where no one sees it. Like it's like the black hole of the hair. Like no one sees what happens on the other side of this foil. So I keep my brush vertical, I paint down into the hairline, pull this up and away. The key point of this technique is notice I'm not holding the foil, I'm holding the hair. I'm keeping tension on the hair, not on the foil. It's huge for this to be like quick and successful. Is paint up to there and then go ahead and switch it and then saturate the rest of it. Again, this is one of the reasons that I like using Freedom with this, is because as soon as the Freedom Blonde touches the hair on that foil, it creates like a magnet to it. This part is usually like the toughest part, and notice I'm standing to the side, you guys are going to be directly in front. Like you would foil just like you regularly would, but because you don't want to look at my back to see this, just gotten really good at doing it from the side. But you're going to fold it up just like you normally would, and then lay that piece down. Above that, again, we're not going to pre-section. I'm going to come in right above that, peaks and valleys, drop that piece out, and then do more peaks and valleys on top of it. What you'll find as you start to move up the head, because of the change in density, so there's less hair here, right? Usually on that hairline, you're going to get really skinny hair. And then as you start to move up, that density is going to change. So you're going to start to pick up more hair. Do you see how much stronger those pieces are? So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm still, if you're a folder, you're still going to fold it, but you're going to place it above it and flip the hair up and away. If you want to glue it down, go a little bit back away from the base and then pull your product down into it. Gives you a little bit more control, especially if you're just starting out foiling. Always start off of like where you want to blend down into. So at this point, I'm starting in like zone 2 and then pulling that product back down into zone 1. Again, if I'm you guys right now, I'm standing here, painting and then pulling down, okay? So you're going to want to be directly in front of it. Again, I'm pinching the hair, not holding the foil. I'm using the head basically as like my base or my platform to hold the foil. Pulling the product the whole way through mid-length and saturating the ends. And then folding it down. If you like to crease, go ahead and crease. If not, usually it's going to stay by that second foil. There's enough hair in there that it's not going to slip out. Depending on the hairline, you could do this for 4 or 5 foils up. Usually for me, if they've got a pretty like mild hairline, meaning that they don't have a lot of like variation in it, 3 foils in there is usually enough before moving on to the next section. So in this case, I would pick up, see how much the hair is starting to change now? See how much more hair? Flip it. And what I want is happening naturally. The outside pieces are bolder than the inside pieces, right? So what happens, that hairline is already going to be brighter just because of the way that the hairline is. And the in-between is going to be naturally softer and more blended. Pull the product down. Pinch the hair, move it up and away, and then saturate mid-length and ends. What you'll find after doing this 1 or 2 times is you'll probably never hate foiling a hairline ever again. Like, it was like my demise. I hated foiling it. It never came out right afterwards. It always had like lines and digits. You guys see how soft the hairline is? Just super soft, really nice and blended. There was 3 to 4 foils, I think, in each of these in the quarters. You can see it in this one a little bit more just because of the contrast. But not everyone's going to be the same, especially on a client, again, because the hairline's always going to be a little bit different. So 3 foils in each corner. We're going to do this in the nape and into the interior. Because again, we want that to be uniform, right? The whole way around the face. So we're going to do it here. We're going to do the same thing here, diagonal backs. Diagonals are going to keep it soft and blended, right? I still want to keep it on a diagonal, but I'm going to start right in that little corner in front of the ear. I'm going to take my little peaks and valleys. I'm going to drop that out. Little peaks and valleys on top of that. Clip that hair away. Again, you'll see that it's bolder on the outside corners than on the inside. And it's going to give me that really soft hairline piece. Start out in a way and then blend it down into your base. God bless you. What questions do you guys have so far? None?
When would you not do this?
Okay, good question. I can't think of any.
No.
Honestly, no, I know that kind of sounds like a goofy answer, but if you're looking for a soft blended hairline, it's the perfect go-to. If they want something bolder, then go back to like foiling the way you originally would. So anytime that you move hair away from where it lives, it's going to create softness. So when we foil in the direction the hair lives, we're already creating a bolder end result. Would you agree? So if I want to create softness by moving that hair away from where it lives, I create a softer end result. So if the client brings in that second picture, I didn't bring, that's behind the wall, but that second picture that I showed you guys this morning where it's a really bold money piece, so maybe it's this same technique, but you don't leave hair out in between. Maybe I still foil this one. I'm still going to weave it the same way, right guys? Because it still gives me that little bit of variation at the scalp. But I could foil this one and foil this one and just stagger like where it starts at the base. But if you're looking for a soft blended hairline, You could use it always, every day, on everyone. Why not, right? So we're gonna do the same thing. Great question, thank you. We're gonna do 3. And for sake of you seeing me already do it, we're not gonna do all of this again. You guys are, but I'm not.
You're still leaving hair in between them?
Still leaving hair in between. If you guys wanna see what it would look like to do all of the hair around the face, so your Emma, remember? Yep, that's where your creative freedom comes into play. If you're like, man, I wanna see, like, if I do all of this hair, what that looks like, awesome. Remember, I am gonna give you guys a time limit on how much, so if you feel confident that you can get it done in that time limit, go for it. But we're gonna do at least 3 in each section. So I would then foil this piece the exact same way. Are you guys good with that? Nape, interior, money piece, right? That was the big one for you guys too. Money piece, we're gonna do the exact same way, except for I am gonna pre-section out that area first. That's gonna be the only difference. I'm still gonna do the technique the same way I did before, but I wanna control like how much hair the money piece is a part of before I start. That's the only reason that we're gonna pre-section. Okay? This is going to change depending on where they part their hair. Would you agree? So right now I'm playing off of that she's got a center part. If she parts to the left, all I'm gonna do is extend that line over farther. I want the point to be where she parts her hair at. Okay? So I've got her section. Now I've dropped out a little bit of hair on both sides. I'm still gonna come in the exact same way, but you'll notice it's a much wider section and the head starts to curve here, right? So I'm gonna have to use 2 foils side by side on this. The difference is gonna be, we've dropped this section out the whole way around, right? Except for now, I wanna foil this section now. Because again, that money piece, she wants to see, if it, listen, the whole thing could be beautiful, and if this isn't bright enough, the rest of it does not matter. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. It could be flawed. It's like, but look at the back. No, no, just this piece right around the face. Oh, so I'm gonna split that in half. If I try to put that all in one foil, it's gonna be too wide. It's not gonna get close enough. I'm gonna start to get some pull from inside my foils. You guys see? So again, I'm painting up and away and then pulling product down into the hairline. So you'll be standing in front. So this is when you're gonna have to get like kind of personal with your client. Either that or have them tilt their head back, whichever. If you are vertically challenged and are not going to be able to reach over them by tilting their head back, then you're gonna have to just get in their personal space in the front. That's the only way to do it. First section, and then we're going to have 2 side by side. And then depending on how bold they want the money piece, again, like if you want to do back-to-back foils on this one, you can. If you want to do 3 to 4, just so that it's thicker from the profile, you'll be able to see it more the more foils you do. You can do that as well, as long as it fits in that time frame. So we're going to keep these diagonals back until we get to the top parting that we previously created. How do you guys feel? Good. Think this will be useful? Mm-hmm. How many of you guys are ready to try it? Yeah? All right, let's do it. So, before you guys go, you are working with partners, right?
Yes.
I encourage one of you to start probably in the front and the other one start in the back, so you're not both trying to work in the nape at the same time or both trying to work at the front at the same time. Does that make sense? So that way, like, you're not getting like bumping elbows. So, and then you can switch and then the other person will be at the other place. Cool? How long do you guys think it'll take you? 3 foils in each section. 8 minutes. will depend on how far back you go. The only thing here is that I would probably, if you want a deeper money piece, is continue to go into the interior as well, so that those kind of marry and match from like your side profile. So from your back view, what you should have right now are 3 foils. If you chose to do more, then we'll kind of see what that looks like as the end result. You'll get a bolder, lighter sectioning around the perimeter. But right now you should have the perimeter done. If you didn't have enough time to complete them, that's okay. If you got a spare minute during a different section, if you want to jump back to that, you're more than welcome to. We're going to switch gears and go into some balayage before we go back to foiling a little bit. We've got this triangle section in the back nape area now that we know that usually is like the black hole again of like the whole hair, like of the whole head. So this is where the density usually starts to thicken up a little bit. This is where I feel like if we foil this, it gets lost really easily. Would you guys agree? Just because there's so much hair here that if you do the same size foils as here, like it just doesn't turn out the same way. It ends up being lost. So we're gonna actually balayage this section just so that we do get some lightness in here, but we don't lose the depth either, because that's what keeps it bright looking, is to have some contrast against that dark. We are gonna subdivide it though, because that is a big section. I could take this and balayage the whole thing if I wanted a darker outcome. That would be cool. I would just surface paint the whole thing. Because I want it to be a little lighter, I'm going to come into the interior so you can see that it extends from hairline to hairline. I'm going to create a little triangle right in the center, giving me 2 separate sections to balayage, and then a triangle section in the center to balayage. So again, as a whole, if you want a darker end result, you can balayage this whole surface area. For a lighter end result, take a triangle section right out of the center and go ahead and clip that up and away. And we're going to start by balayaging these 2. For balayaging, do I have anybody in here that likes using a paddle? A few paddlers? Anybody? Just so like I use my hand or nothing at all? Yeah? All right.
Do it all. I don't usually
Do it all. Say it again.
I don't usually balayage. So.
Perfect. All right. How many of you are like, I've never done this before ever, or I'm just starting? Great. Awesome. So I like to use a paddle just because I like to keep the amount of product to a minimum. I find that if I have free reign of the whole bowl, I pick up too much product. So for me, it's just limiting how much that I'm going to use. I keep it so that I can see the grooves on it. This one has grooves. I like keeping it really thin because it controls how much product goes on the top of my brush. If I pile this too thick here, it means that I get more product deeper on my brush, which can sometimes lead to blotchy areas like as I'm balayaging, and then that leads to inconsistent like outcomes as far as lift. So I keep just enough that I can pile enough product on the top of it to get like a surface application. You guys can see I've almost created 2 separate surface areas on the top of there by just taking out that middle piece. And I want to balayage both sides of that section. So I'm going to pinch the hair where I want the blend to start happening at. I've got the hair at a 45-degree angle. Again, I just want enough product on the tip of my brush that I'm not going to oversaturate the hair, giving me like different divots in the hair, or like those big like, or the spots that you get sometimes from product inconsistency. And I'm going to slowly start to apply product and move it towards where my fingers are pinching the hair. Opening up the range of motion, I'm using my arm to pull product towards me. Pulling it towards me keeps it a little bit stronger of appearance. If I want softer, brush up and away. So more diffused, brush away. For a stronger end result, paint towards you. Notice that I'm not getting more product on my brush than what I feel comfortable working with. I keep going back and reapplying. Saturation is huge with balayage because that's what's going to give you the lift. And it doesn't mean that you have to saturate the whole thing in one step. I like to layer it and build the saturation that way. That also gives me a nice like gradient effect as far as like I know not every piece is going to have the same amount of saturation, giving me automatic like highs and lows. So I've got this surface area, and then I've also got a surface area on the top. So I'm going to paint that side as well. So I've got an interior and an exterior that I'm going to paint. Continue to paint down towards where your other hand is pinching the hair. And keeping the elevation out at 45 degrees. That's going to help with that tension on the hair as well. Again, for softness, I brush up into it. And for strength, pull down towards your fingers. I've got two brushes. One I keep in the bowl to load the paddle with. This one can be the not so clean, not so, you know what I mean, like meticulous brush. I keep this one for my application. Once I'm happy with what the top looks like, I'll slowly start to slide my other hand down as I paint and move with it. Does that look good? I can't even see. I'm trying to stay out of y'all's way.
Yeah.
Like add balayaging to the side. To a resume somewhere. All right. Once I get down to like where I can't really get a good grip on the hair anymore and I start to lose that pinch, I'll move it to the top of the paddle. That's one of the reasons that I also like having the paddle, is that I can start to saturate if I want to saturate the ends. At this point, like if you don't like to use a paddle, you can always switch it to the back of your hand and apply product that way as well. The biggest thing for this though, if you're going to saturate the ends, keep your brush vertical instead of going horizontal, just because you will create a strong line and you want it to stay blended underneath as well. So the second that brush starts to go horizontal, you're going to start to get like a crease, not only on this side, but on the other side. And trying to blend out the underside of this is a project that you just don't want to have to encounter. So keep your brush as vertical as possible as you're blending, and don't be afraid to go back if you start to see, like by blending and pulling and softening, that I want that bright. The whiter that it is on the hair, the lighter that it'll be as the end result. So you want to make sure that that stays really white here. So I'm going to balayage that section and then move to the opposite side and balayage this section as well. Doing the same technique. After that, then I'll pull down the triangle and we're going to surface paint the top of that piece of triangle that we've just tucked up and away. What questions do you guys have? I'm going to do this one in real time.
Do you ever saturate the top part through, or just always surface paint? Balayage.
It's a great question. So do I ever saturate the top part through, or do I always just surface paint? If you're balayaging, typically it should just live on the surface of the hair. Once you start to saturate too much up here, you'll definitely want to get a foil or something else involved just so that you can apply pressure to it. Because if it's not saturated the whole way through, that's where you're going to get an inconsistency with lift also. So for me, like I like to keep and maintain that darkness underneath, because to me that's what's going to show this being brighter and this being brighter. That darkness is what gives that light more life. All right, so for you guys over here, I'm going to switch her. Tilt her head to the other side, so again, so I can keep that on a 45. And I have this top surface area and then this interior surface area. I'm going to come through. Again, pulling towards me is going to create a brighter, stronger application. Brushing up and away is going to soften that. But by creating this section, I get control of lightness on the interior and the exterior of both sides. Reapply. And you just want to keep working down towards where your the hand is pinched. Don't let go of this until you're happy with what's above here. The second that this is let go, is the second that you lose your tension on the top. Lay it on the top of your paddle, and then continue. If you want your lighter ends, saturate through mid-length and ends. And then that leaves your triangle to surface paint on the interior. How you guys feeling? Good. All right. So again, that whole bottom section, we took a triangle out of the center. That gives you 2 side sections of balayage and the middle triangle to balayage. You guys can take turns, or you guys each get a side section, and then you can either tag team the middle one or one can take it. And then you guys can stop there before we move on to the next section. What questions do you have? None? Ready? Go for it. Looks like fun. Like hearing that. To work on the rest of the perimeter.
Yeah. Stand like that. That way you always work on the left side.
We're gonna have flex side.
Talk while you're working.
Can I talk to you about what I'm doing? What do you want? Oh. Alright, so we're saturating the top of it. Pushing away is going to give me a soft, more blended end result. Pulling down is going to give me a stronger application and surface paint. I'm going to paint down to where my fingers are pinched. Not until I'm happy with what happens above here will I move this finger. So I'm going to continue to work down, making sure that my saturation is there for lightness and brightness. Keep pulling this down, and where I get to a place that I can't pinch anymore, I'm going to switch it to the back or the top of my paddle, and then saturate down through the ends. How was the balayaging part of it? Good? What were some of the things that went well about it?
Sectioning worked really well.
The sectioning worked really well?
Separated, yeah.
Yep, it kept it organized and separated. It'll give you a really good distribution of light as an end result also. And again, we talked about that interior being that black hole, if you will. Now we have 3 different areas that we painted to prevent that from happening. So I'm going to get some interior light movement from both of those side sections, as well as that horizontal from the middle. So a lot of times they tell you in balayage not to take a horizontal line in balayage with it, because what do horizontals create? Hard lines. Weight. Yep. Strength, right? It creates strength. If anywhere in the head I need strength, it's where? Because of the change in density, right? So if I can use a horizontal in the densest area, I know that I'm going to create the most strength and the most weight, which is exactly what I want in there so that it matches the rest of the head. Does that make sense? Yeah, if I were to put a horizontal here, it's not going to have the exact same impact as what it does right at that occipital bone. Great. So nape area is done on both sides. I didn't get a chance to finish my other side, so we're just going to pretend for now, okay, that side's done. What we're going to do in here is going to do foils and balayage. So the in-between section is going to be a mix of both. Our foil section, chunks. What was the other word?
Ribbons are prettier.
Ribbons, yep, ribbons sound really pretty. I like flashes because I'm like, ooh, a flash of light or whatever. Yeah, they're chunks, let's be real. We just evolved the terminology. But it's going to start out as chunks. They're all going to be on a diagonal though. Huh?
There was a day where that was wanted.
It was one.
Yeah.
The piano keys were a thing.
Yeah.
Black, white, black, white, black, white, yeah. And if you weren't a hairdresser then, be thankful. But we're going to do different diagonals. Some are going to be diagonal forward, some are going to be diagonal back, which is why that it gives us flashes of light and different movement, is because they're not all going the same way. So our exterior foils are going diagonal back. So the color is going to want to move away from the face, right? So if we were to envision a marble at the top of these foils, whichever way that marble rolls is where the color is going to move. So diagonal back, so my marble is going to move back. So all of that light is going to move away. So my next foils, I want diagonal forward so the color moves towards the face. What I'll end up creating is this like back and forth of color where you can't really tell where it starts or stops. Like that's what produces that really natural end result. So our next one is I'm going to take a diagonal forward. So if I were to look at this and if there was a marble on top, the marble is going to roll towards the face, which means my color is going to move towards the face. So diagonal forward, what I'm going to end up resulting, or what's going to end up happening by doing that is I'm going to create a triangle section in the middle that we're going to balayage later. So my first slice is going to be where my other foil and the top parietal section meet. And I'm just going to take a slice. And because we said before, if you move hair away from where it lives, it creates softness. If you paint it where it lives, it creates a more bold end result. I want these to be bold. So I am going to paint it where it lives. This is where your creative freedom comes into play. If you want a little bit more of like a shadow root, don't paint as close to the scalp. Start maybe at like zone 2 or the mid-lengthen ends versus going as high as what I am. And the difference is going to be like on our 3 mannequins. The last one, our brunette, everything's really close to the scalp on that one, so you're going to get more lightness towards the scalp. Versus the middle blonde, everything's in that zone 2, zone 3, so mid shaft to ends. So completely up to you. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a shadow root at the top. Go ahead and fold that up on this one. I just like to crease the interior because I'm going to put another foil right next to it. I'm going to pick up that section. I'm going to do another slice now on the interior of the triangle. So my first one was on the perimeter of the triangle. The next one is going to be on the interior. Flip that up and away. And these are going to be back to back. So they're going to be back to back slices. If you want to stagger the amount of depth that you leave at the base, that's completely, again, up to you. I'm going to blend up into the scalp and then bring down through mid-lengthen ends. Now, for somebody that already has lightened hair, color treated hair, could you do a highlight and a low light this way? For sure. Could you do 2 low lights this way? Absolutely. So say they're already blonde and they want to transition into fall and you don't need to add any more lightness to it. It's awesome to go through and just do 2 back-to-back low lights like this so they have flashes of like a deeper color through the interior as well. So you've got your original foils, you've got your diagonal forward foils, and then you've got this little triangle section that we're going to leave clipped out of the way for now. From there, I want to create diagonal back, giving me another triangle on the interior. So clip that one up and away. You guys see the next triangle that we just created? So what this looks like on a flat surface is we have our original foils. These are the slices that we just created. And now I'm creating slices the other way. So it goes this way. And then this way. This way. So you're creating triangles that are both peaks at the top and peaks at the bottom that we're going to balayage. But again, what this is going to do is give us movement in different directions so that we can't tell like where it starts and stops. So for these ones, I'm going to stand in front of you guys for a minute just so I can paint it. For a softer blended end result, could you lift them up and move them away? Sure. But we want those bold flashes of light. Excuse my back. We're going to do 2 back-to-back slices. So it'll be the exact same on both sides. So since you're working with a partner, if you start in the same place, you guys will meet right in the middle with the center triangle section. So my first slice, and then my second slice. What questions do you guys have on the foiling? It's pretty easy, right? The impact that it gives as the end result is worth the like 6 foils that it takes to put in on both sides. It gives great coverage, again with like a high impact end result. So we were talking earlier about like less being more, or like quick and easy. This is definitely one of those quick, easy applications that give you a lot of coverage with a very noticeable end result.
The middle mannequin that's already done.
Yep.
Is this the exact thing that you did, or did you like hand paint on some of it that was outside the foil?
So it's going to be hand painting outside of the foil as well. Yep.
Okay.
So it's the same technique. The part that we haven't got to yet is, so if I foil this, let me foil this one piece so I can show you guys the balayage in between. But everything's going to either have a foil or a balayage on it. Yep. So it really cuts down on your foil work, but it makes the foil work that you do way more impactful. Yep.
So you're leaving that triangle in the middle to balayage. Okay.
Yep. Saturate this one.
The very middle bottom section, it didn't give anything on it, right? Or did it get into a triangle? Like
That's
the very
part of
bottom?
this side. Yep. That's going to be pulled into a balayage after we're done. Yep. All right. So we'll foil this one, and then we'll get into the balayaging in between. This is why the sectioning in the beginning was so important too, is because right at that parietal ridge, remember we said anything below that needed more of like a direction put to it, because it's not going to fall the same as what we do on top. The surface area is like the easiest part of the whole head, just because it does create a softness no matter what. This section we have to apply more techniques to get that same movement. All right, so we've got one triangle section in the middle. Everybody can see that? Cool. And then you move to the side. I've got one triangle section with the point being up and the flat area down. And then we have another one with the point down and the flat area on the top. So you should have 2 on each side and then 1 in the middle. Everyone good with that? We're going to start on the underside so I can drop my foils down and then paint the top 2 sections. So everything outside of the foil is going to get balayaged. So I've got 2 surface areas on the top. I'm going to hand paint that. And then once I'm done with that, I drop down those foils and I get to hand paint those triangles on the other sides of it. Make sense? Yeah? You guys have any questions?
How in the world did you figure this out?
That is a great question. How in the world did I figure this out? You know, it is. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of working with the head shape, and it's a lot of realizing for the longest time I just thought I was lazy, and I was like, what is the easiest way to do this? And it just turns out like it's efficiency, not laziness. But working with the head shape and knowing like if I place certain lines and angles on certain areas of the head, it gives me this end result. So for me, seeing, this one's probably the best one. For you guys now to see that this is literally what, 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 16 foils, if that, through the interior with balayage sections, and I get that for an end result. I mean, it's high impact, low, you know what I mean, like low work. So I can do some slices, I can do some balayage, but again, it's like we talked about this morning, it's taking those techniques and building them together like building blocks. What's the outcome? What do I want to see? I know that I want to see brightness around the face, and I want some flashes through the interior. So then I break that down. What gives me flashes through the interior? Slices. and direction, right? So which direction do I want to move them in? Because I already know the technique that I want to use. Does that make sense? So it's almost taking it and breaking it down. So if they bring in a different inspiration picture, where are the bold pieces and what technique is that? And then how do I fill in the areas in between for softness? So that was the whole section. So you'll be able to see, like, once it gets to the back, you can almost see exactly where that balayage is, right? In between, because it's softer there. And then when we get to the top, you're gonna have a lot of softness on top, and then that boldness around the face again. Great. Go forth and foil and ball. Discoveries why they were doing like the interior.
I did.
Would you love to share?
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so I asked a question of, should we always do diagonal forwards and then switch diagonal back? So like, what if the client doesn't want so much flash of color? And I realized, and she said, Amber said that if she wears her hair more back, then we should do more diagonal backs to accentuate the hair going back. So then that would create like a slanted rectangle. So then we can split that up into triangles and then do the same thing, except instead of having like self-made triangles, we make those triangles.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Thanks for sharing. Give it up. Give it up. Thank you for sharing that. The whole point of learning new techniques to me is to like figure out how you can work it to like your advantage. So maybe not to necessarily do the same thing as what I'm showing you, but like how can you take what I'm showing you and turn it into something else? So in that moment, he was like, oh, so if I make flashes back and forward, if they don't want the flashes towards their face, if they wear their hair pulled forward, what if I did them back and away so that it accentuates it that way? Because would you agree that there are some people with the long hair, like especially longer than shoulders, that they either wear it all back, all forward, or like half and half? Or you have the like one side people, right? Like they pull all their hair to one side, back, or all forward. So depending on how they walk in the door, really depends on how you want to place the foils or the balayage for an end result. If they always wear it back, and I place all of my foils at a diagonal back, is it going to be bolder or softer?
Bolder.
Bolder, right? Again, think about that marble. Wherever that marble rolls is where the color spills. So if they wear their hair back and I place all diagonal backs, I'm going to create bold flashes when they wear their hair back. If I want a softer end result, say that client doesn't want a really noticeable end result, but she always wears her hair back, I want everything forward. Why?
Because it'll look softer.
Because it'll look softer. What else?
It moves the opposite way.
It moves the opposite way. Remember we said if you take color away from where it lives, it'll create softness. If it lives here and I take it this way, by her pushing her hair back, it's going to create softness. Does that make sense? So it's always important, especially in longer hair clients, to see how they wear their hair, especially for a technique like this. With this one, like you've got a little bit of both happening. So whether it's forward, back, indifferent, like you're going to have some flashes either way. But you could accentuate it by either moving them all the same way for different, like for bolder movement then too. Anybody have any other self-discoveries on the interior? No? All right. The rest is fairly easy from here. We're going to work on the top. It's going to be all balayage because we want that strength to show on that money piece. Everything else is going to be really soft and kind of diffused behind it. We're going to go in with, so then your next section, diagonal back, and then meet in the middle with the horizontal. If you've got enough room, you can meet it with another diagonal back. What will end up happening is this will get balayaged like right on the back of that money piece. But again, because we're directing everything back and away, so balayage, 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 everything back and away, when it moves forward, all the lightness is hidden underneath, not on the surface. Which is why, like on the 3 of these, from profile, is underneath that, because we directed it back and away. So my first section is going to come, where's my comb? From the outside, I'm going to marry it to where my my foil in the back comes into play, to the center of the crown, and drop that side out, and drop the other side out. So both of these sections will get balayage, and then I'll connect it with a horizontal in the middle. So your one in your crown is probably going to be a fairly like thin section, but again, to help produce that flash of light, I want this balayage to match with that foil, so that way when it spills, it connects those pieces together. And we're going to do that the whole way from the crown to the front hairline. Now my elevation is going to change. It's still going to be at 45, but below this area was at 45 below horizontal. Now we're going to be at 45 above horizontal, so I want that tension up and away from the scalp. So you'll want to drop your mannequin head down. So adjust your tripod at this time so that you can get a good angle on the hair. If I can tilt her to the side so you guys can see. If you want a lighter end result, saturate zone 2 or that mid-length through the ends. So the second mannequin that's up here, our blondie, she was saturated mid-length through ends on all of the balayage sections, which is why she's so light. So if you guys have been saturating, then you'll get a closer end result to the second one. For everybody else that's been surface painting and just like balayaging and saturating the ends, you'll get an end result closer to the first one. And then we're going to move to the second section. What questions you guys have on the top?
How much root do you prefer to leave out? Like, do you do like a ½ inch to kind of give it that rooted effect?
That's a great question. How much root do I leave out on the top? I would say I wouldn't go any closer than an inch to the scalp. Yep, that's a great question, because again, when this moves forward, you want it to have that depth at the scalp. So yep, no closer than an inch, but after that, it's your degree of creativity from there. Yep. Awesome. What questions?
Reteach that section.
Yes, let me make sure her head is... There we go. Sorry, I was tilting it for them. Time out.
Yep.
I gotta play. Alright. So you're taking 2 diagonal back sections, connecting them to the foils from the side section, keeping the hair elevated. We're just gonna surface paint again with our freedom and bring that to where my finger is pinched. For a lighter end result on the top, I don't want to go any closer than an inch towards the scalp because I want to keep that little bit of like a shadow root. But I do want light and bright through the end. So once I get to where I pinch, I'm going to move that to the back of my paddle and then saturate down through length and ends. Keeping my brush vertical so that it has a good blend on the underneath side. And continue to saturate and blend as I pull product down.
And what will you do through the top?
Those are going to be connected by a horizontal. So after you get those done, you're going to connect the two with a horizontal in between. And then balayage that piece as well.
You have to think about like stand directly behind it. Yeah.
And my brain. Yeah, I got it. Okay, got it. Makeup here? This one, I gotta grab every piece. We're around that.
Yeah. Straight.
Oh wait, I'm looking at this. You're right.
for it.